Hi everyone, it's Jerry. Let's have a look at a game between Baskaran Adhiban playing on the white end and Magnus Carlsen. This was from round 2 of the 2018 Tata Steel Chess Tournament, Masters section. We have an E4, E5 game, Four Knights game. With D4, this is noted as the Scotch Variation. First dozen moves of this game are neither player is surprised. All pretty standard stuff. Some pressure now on E4, now that the knight is pinned. So knights are exchanged. Black takes towards the center. Bishop D3. D5. E takes D5. Carlsen castles straight away. You could just capture on D5 as well. Black with the last move is giving white an opportunity to maybe be greedy. This would not be a wise choice, because what are you going to do with your king after bishop g4, rook to e8 ideas? Where's his safe haven? It's unclear. White doesn't bite, simply castles. And only now c takes d5. Bishop g5. He's no longer a good defender of d5, and the bishop's ready to take out the knight and basically the queen from defending d5. So c6 is there. d5 is now secure. Queen f3. The bishop did his job on b4, so he's relocating. Initially, this may strike some as a bit awkward to deploy the bishop on d6 instead of, let's say, e7, where you're breaking the pin. But black at this stage is content with having the kingside structure damaged with this bishop takes knight idea, and that's what we're going to have in the game. The imbalance will be related to the pawn structure and the minor pieces. So rook a to e1, rook b8, b3, and a5. I describe a5 as basically placing a constraint on the c3 knight. If you go somewhere other than a4, this pawn goes further, and both the a pawn and the rook converge on b3, and the pawn's ready to exchange himself off. The isolated pawn is ready to exchange himself off for a perfectly healthy white pawn on b3. So some squares now provided for the white king. Similar for team black. Bishop takes knight, queen takes, and well, here we go. This is the main feature of this game. Well, this doesn't actually last for too long, but the structure throughout, from this point on, the structure is the biggest feature in this game. Eventually, we're going to have a knight for dark square bishop exchange, but the structure is the key feature here. Knight to e2 is follow-up. There are some gaps over here now that the structure is weakened, and the knight is ready to eye up two of them. And, well, he was also eyeing up d4, so that's taken out with c5, knight g3. So what to do, how to prepare to deal with the knight on f5, rook to e8, and after knight f5, bishop f8. If the knight goes to h5, this is easily defended with bishop to e5. The bishop would be controlling the knight, and on a really good square from e5, and there's even d4 and c3 as good squares for the bishop. So knight f5, bishop f8, and the knight immediately jumps right in, and he has to be captured. So otherwise there's a fork. So there we go. Bishop takes knight, rook takes, bishop e6, move 21. We are only 15 moves away, and this game is over. That to me is surprising. This is the key position that I really want to touch on in this game. And by viewing this game, I feel that I grew some as a player. What are the key features? I already pointed out the pawn structure as being the key feature. What about the pawn structure is so important? Well, the queenside pawns are most important here. The kingside pawns, not so much. Even though black has isolated pawns, a fractured kingside structure, this isn't where the attention is going to be for the rest of the game. It's on the queen side. On the queen side is where we're going to eventually see each side with a passed pawn. Moreover, the bishop positions are very important. You'll notice that as black pushes on the queen side, this gains some steam. This hits with tempo. The black bishop doesn't have that issue. Okay, c4 is going to hit with a punch, and this is a race position, so every tempo counts. So from here, what we have is rook to d1. This isn't one of the top suggestions by the computer. Computer's a fan of playing rook to a7. The rook on e6, or excuse me, rook on e7 is, I don't want to say out of play, but definitely well under control. It's almost like the bishop, the bishop kind of cuts off the rook. He's not able to connect with any other white piece. There's no, let's say, convergence on f7. This is well supported. So he's on e7, he could go to a7, but he's, that's it. This is one of the suggestions, to go to a7. This would force rook to a8. Otherwise, a5 is going to fall. So white has the option to play rook a7 and play this position with one less major piece on board. And the other is to play f4. What's the idea behind f4? Well, to rattle the bishop post on e6. Maybe even, after f4 and f5, there might even be some idea with g4. And after capture f5, challenging this strong bishop post on e6. Okay. Well, in the game, it's rook to d1, c4. He can't be captured. Capturing on c4 here, and that's basically game over. The choices are bishop e2 or bishop f1 at this stage. What's wrong with capturing? Well, you're going to end up in a pin. And this isn't going to be any fun. Rook b1 eventually. One key move first. King f8, and only then rook to b1. Rook b1 straight away. Allows a check and then defense. One little move, king f8, and only then rook there, and that's the ball game. So you can't take. Bishop e2 in the game. a4. Black really wants this b pawn to make a capture. Why? Well, one of the ideas is to not only get to the second rank, but to do so and strike at two pawns that are unprotected. This is like some golden square for Team Black. Get your rook to b2. It's hitting everything. Hitting the weak points in White's camp. B takes a4 in the game. Now, I was pointing out, get to the b2 square. You can't do that for tactical reasons. You can't just jump right in here. Rook b2 at this stage, and your rook's unprotected. That would allow bishop takes c4. So instead, we have bishop f5, hunting down c2, or trying to hunt down the c2 point. This is where white now goes astray. There's some miscalculation white had at this stage. The best move is to get the pawn out of harm's way with c3. But in the game, bishop f3, so some miscalculation, I imagine, by Adhiban. It's easy to go wrong in this position. This is a race position. Plenty of, you have to calculate deeply here. We currently have a passed a-pawn and a 2-to-1 majority here. Just considering the C and D files, one of these guys is going to be passed soon enough. So one of the ideas with bishop f3 is on a capture on c2, the rook can now recapture on d5. We have an exchange of pawns. Carlsen presses with d4, and this opens the bishop's eyes. He now observes that promotion square. So now the pawn takes off, a5. Bishop takes c2. Black, as it turns out, is simply going to be faster in this pawn race. And we know how valuable two pawns on the 6 can be. They're more valuable than a rook. And, well, black is just winning this race. From here on out, Every move by Team Black is a top move. Rook c1, the rooks are exchanged. The bishop is out of the pawn's way. Rook c7. What else is white to try here? Going forward with this pawn race, let me just highlight this variation. a6. If a6, we would have c3. a7, c2. Let's say white takes a timeout to stop the promotion. The pawns just continue to march. White would promote first, but who cares? How are you dealing with two pawns on your second rank? It's game over for Team White. Black is simply too fast. In the game, it's rook c7, c3. For the moment, c2 is prevented. Rook a8, c5. Black is now up a pawn. This guy's going nowhere, and the plan here is exchange rooks and push these guys. Bishop c2, for the moment, stopping d3. Bishop e6, king f1, and rook c8. Another rook is gone. You can't avoid the rook exchange here with rook here. That would be silly. Bishop c4 and d3 follows, so there's just nothing here. The rooks are exchanged. a6 is controlled. In the game, it's king to e2 doing something else, like bishop d3. Carlsen could play, there's only one winning move here. Carlsen could play bishop a6, and that's game over. Bishop takes bishop, c2. Can't stop the pawn from promoting. So just a few more moves played out in this one. King e2, bishop a6. If the bishop blocks, c2. In the game, it's king f3. And after d3, Adhiban has had enough. Game over. White resigns. I don't know how to describe this one. It's another case of, making it look too easy, in a way. This position where we have, I was pointing out the key features being the queenside structure, right here after the exchange of knights, or the bishop for knight exchange. This position right here, the key feature, queenside pawn structure, and the location of the bishops, and how the move c4 is hitting with tempo. This is a time-sensitive position, and if you're in a race position and you're getting hit by your opponent's moves, you're getting hit by an opponent's move like c4, throwing a punch at your bishop, and you're having to react, retreat. This factors in, and that's what contributed to this loss on the white end. Very easy to go wrong in these race positions. So if we have a look at the tail of the tape of this one, if you're curious about the average centipawn loss for each player, here's the graph. Pretty even throughout, all the way into endgame land. Little shift there with bishop to f5. This was a moment, I believe that was the moment there where c3 could have been played, but after bishop f3, a big shift at that stage, and then just a growing advantage for Team Black from that point on in that race position. Final tally here, Adhiban, 0 inaccuracies, 4 mistakes, 1 blunder, 40 average centipawn loss. Carlsen, 2 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 0 blunders, with a 12 average centipawn loss. The lower the number, the better. So, as usual, feel free to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.